wanted to do another video in line with the first video that I did. If you guys saw, title Vow of Silence. So it's about my third video in. And this concept I actually wrote down because I was thinking about it. It was originally on my wall, and I decided to actually cut it off the wall and take it with me, so that I could read it proper, play it back how I've been thinking about it, or how I wrote it down. And this is actually something that my uncle told to me. I spoke with him, quite recently, and within the last maybe month and a half. And that's what he told me. So I'm gonna just read it and go from there. But this is something I've been thinking about, and it's kind of like, I guess, another contemplation post, another thoughtful idea here. So, assess the value a person places on you before engaging in activity with them. I'm gonna read that again. I'm gonna read that one more time, because this is something that it really meant something to me when I first. I felt like I had to write it down. And we were having a conversation, about personal value, and just in terms of how one and others perceive oneself. Like the way people perceive you, your friends, family, just people in the world, and the way that life happens sometimes is that journey of your self-value can really, lead you anywhere, good or bad. To me, this is something positive. This is something that I would say is a positive thing. But, a person's journey can take them anywhere. And even if we're just speaking positive, right? Just the myriad of different experiences a person could have versus another. It really is something, I guess, fascinating to me. And here I like to talk about things that are interesting to me, things that are more maybe deep, more contemplative, and things that we could really think about in due time. I like the thought that there's good playback, or rather, yeah, that's actually not a bad way to say it. Good playback, or good continuative value in the future. So if someone were to come back and a few years later watch, something that I was talking about, or something that, I might be leading a discussion on, it would be something that is actually of value, not just in that moment of time, but, for continuance. So I'm going to read that one again, right? I'm going to do it a little slow. Assess the value a person places on you before engaging in activity with them. From now on. Give me a second, I'll put this away. But, what do you guys think about that? I'm going to say what I think about it, of course. I have to put that paper away. Put the piece of paper away. Tend to that later, but yeah, kind of in line with the original post that I originally made here. Like, what do you guys think about that idea? Right, so obviously, the person's value is important, the value that we place on ourselves, and also the value that people place on us. But, to assess the person's value that you may be dealing with, or maybe a group of individuals, to assess the value of a room, let's say, before you enter the room, right? This idea that we should evaluate others, so intently, when in reality we know for the most part that people are evaluating us. There's a balance there that I think, my uncle was hitting at when he spoke to me that I think a lot of people don't have. A lot of people are lacking, myself included, at least at the time. It's something I've been thinking about more intentionally now. But even still, I have these moments of lapse when I think about the fact that I wasn't thinking about this concept. And I think of this concept as a barrier of protection for me and for whoever, may be using this concept to eliminate, individuals that may not be in alignment with them at any given time. I feel like it could be something small or seemingly small, a seemingly small moment with, with other people. This concept of assessing a person's value before you make engagements with them, activity. To me, that's something of actually a pot of gold, because I can think of, different instances in my life, different ones, where I'm with someone, I'm aligned with someone, or a group of, people that I realized I didn't evaluate, I didn't place a value on, because in my mind, I realized that wasn't something that I intentionally came up, raised to do, let's say. It wasn't a mentality that I went to, because it wasn't really something I thought of as a mentality. Only really like in the most serious situations, what I think to evaluate a person in that way. And I think a lot of us might think like this, a bit of offensiveness may be perceived to be connected with this idea of evaluating a person to put value on, right, in regards to your dealings with them, your activity with them, your possible dealings with them, what could become of a relationship with that person, right, whether business or otherwise, but just idea of evaluating a person before you really get to doing whatever it is that you are going to evaluate a person before whatever it is you're going to do normally. In my instance in life, where I'm at right now, where I'm thinking about this, is reacquaintance with old friends. And, sometimes when you have reacquaintance with old friends, it's almost like meeting a new person. It's almost like meeting a new person all over again. Someone that you don't know, but in this case you do know them. And how that might feel, Everybody's instance could be different. I'm sure it is different. For you, it might be somebody who is a legitimate new person in your life that you're learning. And in the case of, my instance of, familiar people, the tricky thing about familiarity is when things aren't familiar, when you learn that a person has grown, or that a person has changed preferences. There's a lot that can go on in the change of dynamics when it comes to your chemistry, or maybe even lack thereof chemistry, and a newfound relationship with this person, where it's, relationship 2.0. But when I say 2.0, I don't mean necessarily the upgrade, but I mean the next step. The next step is maybe someone who fell and maybe parallel with versus intertwinement or entanglement. You might just be side by side you might be working in an environment where you're in tandem with this person, and you may be coming from a relationship where you were best friends. You may have a variety of different emotional and contextual substance there. The relationship could be more tumultuous, but just the idea that a relationship that has made a transition, has made, let's say, migrated from one status to another status. This is what I find can be kind of tricky and not interesting is the word, but definitely enlightening about having relationships with individuals that may be familiar or newly familiar, however we would put that. But now, new relationships, that for me, at least in my mind, is something that I wrestle with more simply because there's less context there. Now it is more unknown, but as someone that kind of errs on the side of confidence, I consider myself, definitely more gravitated toward introversion. So, more than likely an introvert, but in a good deal of instances, I find myself being kind of a little bit of both. So I guess a little bit of an ambivert. So yeah, something like that, somewhere between those two. And I know that might be a bit of a contradiction, but this great myriad of lifestyles that we have today, and the great understanding that we have, I think you can maybe get at what I'm saying. But anyway. Yeah, so dealing with new individuals, just to touch on that for a second, for myself, it's definitely something of an excitement, and like I said, leaning toward introversion. There's that little bit of, I guess you could say, anxiety, based on past ups and downs, just different life experiences, but the way that I've handled things, the quote that I read to you guys relative to, this topic is, I feel that this thing has been somewhat of a protective enclosure with the understanding that most things are preventative, but that prevention requires an intention to do something very definite. And I know that might be a bit wordy, but what I'm really trying to say is that this kind of thinking helped really mind shift me to a place where I'm thinking more about myself in an emotional context where I can protect myself and I can establish myself in a way that makes me more comfortable just day to day. I remember before kind of evaluating, like when I said I was different, a bit of offensiveness may be perceived to be connected with this idea of evaluating a person to put value on, right, in regards to your dealings with them, your activity with them, your possible dealings with them, what could become a relationship with that person, right, whether business or otherwise, but just idea of evaluating a person before you really get to doing whatever it is that you are going to evaluate a person before whatever it is you're going to do normally. In my instance in life, where I'm at right now, where I'm thinking about this, is sometimes when you have reacquaintance with old friends, it's almost like meeting a new person. It's almost like meeting a new person all over again. You know, someone that you don't know, but in this case, you do know them, and how that might feel. You know, everybody's instance could be different. I'm sure it is different. You know, for you, it might be somebody who is a legitimate new person in your life that you're learning. And in the case of my instance of familiar people, the tricky thing about familiarity is when things aren't familiar, when you learn that a person has grown, or that a person has changed preferences. There's a lot that can go on in the change of dynamics when it comes to your chemistry. Yeah. So, my willingness to behave like this, and to have this procedure with whatever persons I was dealing with new, old, to really grow comfortable with this method. Excuse me. I need some water. But this procedure and this method of organizing people in my mind. And I noticed just even in the last really, I say month and a half, but let's say 2 months to play it safe, let's say 2 months, that I've walked myself off the ledge of situations and circumstances in which I realized ahead of time, at that time, when I, decided like, okay, what's the value here? What's the value being placed on me, right? In terms of value, right? What is the value here being placed on me? Do I feel like this individual, and that's the other thing I'm gonna say, but do I feel like this individual places that value that I would place on myself, right? And in those circumstances where the answer was no, even from with individuals where I felt maybe it was yes, at different times that I walked myself off a ledge that would have been really, kind of detrimental, right? Like mentally, emotionally, even a little, because I've been applying it to so many different circumstances. Like, you know what? I would have been annoyed with this here today. I would have, been a little upset with this in the morning. And organizing myself, in the context of my dealings, my engagements, with a little bit more prudence, because of this. And I really am happy about it, proud that, I'm learning. It's something that I really enjoy, and it's something I feel like, deep thought, not being popular anymore, has even more value, even more than it did before. Yeah, that's pretty much that. But what I did want to say before, when I got that idea, was that, the process of it and the procedure, right? Like, I know what I said is relatively simple, but, I guess just to open the hood on it, like, because it feels simple, it is simple, but the process to it, for some reason, I feel like is not very well mastered. It's not something that you frequently see people going around doing. It's something that when we say it, it sounds great, right? But, to think about the value that a person places on you, a lot of times I feel like the procedure people go through is the value that they place on the other person, not thinking so much about the value that the person in question places on you. At least for me, people like myself. And this subject could be related to a lot of things, a lot of topics about what people are talking about. this could be its own thing. This thought about people's value and the obvious truth and importance, necessity for oneself to turn that inward, especially when dealing with outside individuals that come into your life, or individuals that are outside of you in your life. Period. The other thing I wanted to say was today is actually a cloudy day. It's not as sunny as you guys could probably notice. It's starting to drizzle. I'll show you guys the sky. You can see. Yeah, it's a lot different today. But came out anyway. Did it anyway. Some people I was supposed to go to the beach with, they went ahead and made their trip. I'm supposed to do that, but I'd rather do this today. Do it another day. And a couple of other things. Today was kind of like a work day, productive day for me. Those days where you just have to keep pushing, kind of like put things to the side. You guys know what that's like. Putting things to the side, prioritizing things. Especially when you're building something. I'm trying to build this page, or building this page. And not just the time that goes into it, but I don't want to say sacrifices, because this, it's not the biggest of sacrifices, but sacrifice, right? Just as a concept. Enjoy, and I really mean that. Just enjoy. I feel like, and I say something short. Everyone, I feel like it's completely kind of focused on engagement, comments, and things. That's the people don't talk about it. Something I said. Just applying my tendency or liking